You ever have a moment where you just know something's about to go sideways, but you can't do a thing to stop it? That was me, standing on my own front porch, the HOA's little compliance notice, fluttering in the breeze like a threat dressed up as a memo. And there's Lorraine Withers, arms crossed, standing just 2 feet from my wife's oxygen monitor, her lifeline, looking all smug, like she'd just rearranged a few patio chairs instead of nearly getting someone killed. She didn't even look at me when she announced, "It violates exterior uniformity." You ever want to slap the clipboard right out of somebody's hand? Yeah, that happened. She didn't know what she'd unplugged, or maybe she just didn't care. But that box wasn't just some gadget from Amazon. It was the only reason my wife, Emily, was still breathing. And the kicker? I'm the one who wrote the firmware. The only reason Emily's heart didn't stop is because I planned for a fool like Lorraine to yank the plug. But, you don't exactly run around telling neighbors you designed half the surveillance architecture Fortune 500 companies rely on. The planter on my lawn isn't just decorative. It's a streaming hub, encrypted, watching every corner of our property. Thing is, protecting my family isn't just about cameras or code. After my father died in that nursing home, unseen and unheard, I swore nobody I loved would ever suffer because someone else thought they had the right to enforce order. But there I was, watching the paramedics load my pregnant wife into an ambulance. All because Lorraine cared more about matching exteriors than oxygen saturation. This monitor she yanked? FDA cleared, hospital issued, calibrated to catch the slightest drop in fetal heart rate or blood pressure. The so-called antenna she hated so much was part of a relay, not a Christmas light display. I'd filed the exemption paperwork twice, even sent it certified mail. But Lorraine? She didn't bother knocking, didn't call, just used her override key, like some petty god of suburbia. Emily collapsed 6 minutes after Lorraine cut the power. That's what this really was, a 6-minute power trip with a body count waiting to happen. I followed the ambulance in my truck, running silent diagnostics on the home hub, capturing every step Lorraine took, every click of that switch. There's something you learn fixing systems your whole life. You know when something's about to fail. Lorraine? She failed hard. Morally, structurally, the whole bit. By the time I got to the ER, Emily was stable, but the nurse's eyes told me everything. The baby's heartbeat had dipped dangerously. That's not a scare, that's a warning shot. Back home, the next morning, I found a fresh notice on the door, folded in a fancy little sleeve. HOA seal and all. Final warning. Not a single word about the emergency. No acknowledgement of what had just happened. Just comply or be fined. Like nothing could touch them. I scanned the cul-de-sac. Quiet, too quiet. Across the street, Mark Harvey stood in his garage. I asked if he got a notice too. About our ramp, he said, eyes tired. His wife's still in a chair post-surgery, but the HOA called it a permanent alteration. Didn't matter that it's temporary. Didn't matter that it's the only way she gets in and out. All that mattered was the illusion of order. Walking past the clubhouse later, I noticed the gallery of shame on the bulletin board. Planters too big, trash cans left out, a kid's chalk drawing. Each with a name, a violation code, and a pending fine. There was even a photo of our porch, time-stamped the exact day Emily collapsed. This wasn't impulsive, it was premeditated. I reviewed the hub footage again. Lorraine didn't hesitate, didn't wait for backup. She made her move and cut the power. That night, I started knocking on doors. Gina Tolbert, 2 cul-de-sacs over, her son's therapy. Equipment got unplugged after a bogus noise complaint. Same pattern. Mrs. Joe's tomato planters, Gillespie's weather station, the Henry family's emergency lighting after their daughter's seizure. All fined, all bullied, all afraid. But I wasn't afraid. I documented everything. Then there was Marcus, the HOA secretary. Quiet guy, always at the board meetings, always logging minutes. Never raising his voice. But at the next board meeting, while Lorraine droned on about mailbox dimensions, I watched Marcus. When I brought up Emily's hospitalization, Lorraine tried to stonewall me. With legalese, but Marcus' jaw twitched, hands clenched tighter on his pen. When the meeting ended, I caught him alone. "Why are you still on this board?" I asked. He didn't answer. Not with words. Anyway, by the following morning, a hand-delivered letter from the HOA arrived, now upgraded to Level 3 violation. Daily fines, threat of a lien. They weren't just targeting me. They were setting a trap. I spent the night pulling up old violation records from the HOA website. 7 other homes, all marked with emergency inspection, all Lorraine's initials, no oversight, no signatures. I called in a favor, Dr. Ashira Levon, medical compliance advisor. She read the footage and the logs. What Lorraine did isn't just wrong, she said. It's a federal violation. She walked me through how to file a complaint with the state and with the Department of Health. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure no one else went through this. That afternoon, I handed the evidence over to City Hall. I didn't embellish. I just told the truth, every frame, every timestamp. That evening, the city clerk's office taped an emergency review notice on our door. Lorraine fired back instantly, threatening to remove the equipment herself, calling it a public hazard. But now Marcus reached out, resignation letter in one hand, a folder full of unedited emails, and meeting notes in the other. She's going scorched earth, he warned. Good, I said. Let her. He handed me everything he'd archived, drafts Lorraine rewrote, orders to ignore ADA paperwork, even recordings from secret sessions. With Marcus evidence and audio recordings from an anonymous neighbor, the case was locked. I walked into the city oversight office with a binder and a drive. Met by a detective who confirmed this wasn't just about HOA bullying. This was criminal, and the city would move fast. What do you want out of this? He asked. Accountability, I told him. For everyone. That night, I set up a relay in the rec room, monitored the emergency HOA session as Lorraine tried to spin her own narrative, only to be cut off by Marcus, who'd rescinded his resignation that morning. He stood his ground, called her out in front of the entire board, and made sure everything was entered into the public record. The next day, the city held an open review session. For the first time, the neighbors showed up. For the first time, Lorraine lost control of the narrative. Detective Travers played the audio. Marcus read the unaltered minutes. Residents, one by one, told their stories. The city suspended the board on the spot. Lorraine's face went pale. She packed up her folder and left, papers soaked from a spilled water glass, her power finally gone. And for the first time, people smiled at each other on my street. Marcus gave me a nomination form, asked if I'd join the new committee. I told him I wasn't in it for power. He said, exactly. That's why we need you. Lorraine resigned, moved away, her name scrubbed from the letterhead. The neighborhood breathed easier. And the planter, my little encrypted witness, still hums quietly under. The hydrangeas, not a violation anymore, but proof. Proof that one person's silence can enable a bully, but one voice, backed by truth, can wake up an entire community. If you've ever stood up to an HOA or know someone who has, hit subscribe, share your story in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from. Because I guarantee, someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone.